Hello everybody, and welcome to episode 8 of the XMetal in 37 Minutes webinar series. Today we'll be talking about overcoming barriers to XML adoption in the enterprise, and we'll be focusing on objections that can come up from the writing team itself. So how do I make sure that the people who are going to be working with XML on a day-to-day basis are comfortable with it, are confident with it, and that my adoption process goes smoothly. So this webinar is really intended for people who are managing writing teams and maybe considering adopting XML and really not sure about how people are going to take it. My name is Sue Yo. I'm a solutions consultant with the XMetal team for Jet Systems. So let's start first of all with a little bit of big picture, just to recap why people move to XML in the first place, what's drawing them in that direction. There's a few trends that have been going on really over the past few decades. One of them is that companies and organizations are under increasing pressure to deliver content for multiple media and multiple devices. It used to be that you'd have a brochure and that was it. Now you're expected to have a brochure, a website, an optimized website for mobile devices, and maybe different print formats as well. Another reason that people are moving to XML is that they are under regulatory pressure or under other kinds of pressure that means that they need to be able to find answers to questions by search. People are accessing documents more and more electronically and expect to be able to have more powerful searching than you can get just through plain text. And XML does give you some capability to do that. And then another kind of pressure that organizations are experiencing is needing to customize documents for different audiences and for different, being able to produce different variations of their documents, different audiences, different places, different variations of a product, for example. And people want to be able to do all of this without having to duplicate their content a lot, and XML will let you do that. And at the same time, they need to deliver all of this, address all of these issues. They need to deliver content that's accurate and up to date in multiple languages, often simultaneously. And they also want to minimize the costs of doing this in order to stay competitive. So all of this is, a reality for some organizations. Not everybody is as successful with XML as this. We'll look at some of the reasons for that. But the potential for XML is very attractive. You've got the capability of saving a significant amount of time and money in your documentation production process. So why isn't all this great? Why isn't everybody moved to XML already? And here's one of the big challenges, which is what we'll be focusing on today, and that is staff resistance to change. So looking at technology implementations in general, not just XML, you're looking at about half of technology implementations being, having staff resistance being an issue, and it's, severely threatening, in other words, can cause failure in about 10% of technology implementation. So, why is that happening? How do you get beyond that? We'll look at some ideas for how to address these things in the next 30 or so minutes. So let's start with why people resist change. Well, the better webinars that I've found talking about it. This is a presentation from Emma Taylor. And just to summarize some of the things that she's observed as a consultant, is that basically people are concerned that they're going to be losing creativity. They're going to be concerned about losing control. They're going to be concerned about whether the system is going to be less usable than their previous system in terms of being hard to learn, in terms of being not being able to do what they want, and that they're not going to have the same kind of efficiency that they did with the old system. And what this is really closely related to is some fears, and these are really kind of social fears, you notice. It's not really concerns about the product or about the external anything external, but this is how here's about how they're going to be perceived. So you've got people who may be really experienced with the tools that they currently have, who are afraid of losing the advantage that they have in terms of knowing how to operate with those tools. Or they're afraid that instead of they're going to go from being an expert to being somebody who's behind the rest of the group. And really, people are afraid that they're going to be not able to get their heads around it, or not being able to work as effectively as before, and that will make them look stupid. And then the fourth one is kind of a bit of a reversal of all of that. Is that I'm going to the new system is going to be so efficient that I'm going to be, maybe out of a job if I'm not going to be able to, keep doing the things that I'm used to doing because maybe a computer will do it for me. So it's good to understand a little bit about where people may be coming from. So when it comes to implementation, the first step is to understand what your team's needs are. They're likely to fall into those kinds of categories. Those are the kinds of things that people are often concerned about. What it is for your team is maybe quite different. And in technology implementation, there's often a lot of decisions that can be made, and we'll look at what some of those decisions are, and some tips on choosing the tools and choosing the models for meeting your team's requirements. A lot of issues that people come up with are about usability. We're going to really focus today on how to pay attention to usability. Finally, providing training, providing time to learn the product is going to address that fear of being left behind and the fear of being no longer an expert in the product. And another thing that's really important, kind of obvious to say, is to make sure that people feel as if they're listened to and to actually listen to their input, just because it is often very valuable. To listen to the needs of people who are going to be using these new tools and new technologies on a day-to-day basis. So we're coming at it, or what we can offer from the perspective of just systems, is that we've seen a lot of implementations. XMetal has been in use for over 10 years. So we've seen a lot of implementations of XML, some of them successful, some of them not so successful. And first thing that we can say is that the writer's concerns are often really legitimate. Not every project does go over well. That 10% that fail because of usability issues or stack resistance issues. Those are, failures that have happened just despite people struggling. So we can help in a few ways. Let's look at a few ways that we can help. So looking at this concept of choosing tools, understanding your team's needs and goals, just quickly go through all of these things. Understanding your team's needs and goals, that's something that is mostly going to be, up to you. We can help you kind of articulate what things are, but that's going to be mostly up to you. Mostly what a vendor can do is with these second and third stages, where it's about choosing tools that meet your team's requirements and providing tools that are usable. Okay? So the first thing that we can do is that we can help you with more usable tools. And also with providing training and time to learn and listening to your stakeholders and having them be engaged in this process. That's also something that a vendor can help with. So we can help by making sure that you've got the training and support available. And with XML, because people are so often customizing or configuring their tools to meet their specific requirements, a vendor can help by supporting a tool even after it's customized. And that's what the vendor community can do with you. Also working with you to address concerns. So getting us involved in having the objections or the potential objections of your writing team address. That's something that we can help with. So let's look at the stages of planning a smooth implementation. Most of the time when people are working with XML, they're working with their existing team, maybe augmented by one or two experts. And it's a team effort to go through step one in particular of this process. So you're going to be analyzing your content, determining what your reuse strategy is. We'll take a closer look at that. And then selecting some tools, getting training. We really want to encourage you to do a proof of concept project, and we also want to encourage you to optimize your tools as needed. This is basically the sequence that we recommend and that we've seen recommended by many independent consultants and many XML experts. There is a fair amount of overlap between them. After looking at tools, for example, you may be before. But this is basically a fairly workable kind of process for many organizations. So let's look at each of these bit by bit. Analyzing your content. What does that mean? It's something that, if you've seen a few presentations about XML, you've probably been implored to do it. I would break it down into a few kind of questions here. First of all, looking at why content is duplicated. And that's an important question because it's a driver towards XML for many organizations, is that they feel that there's a lot of content that's in multiple places, it's difficult to update in 5 places at once. And what's helpful in this stage is doing a little bit of learning about content reuse strategies. These terms are modular reuse and conditional text. If they don't mean anything to you yet, we've got some resources about what those terms are, and just to learn a little bit about what reuse works, how reuse works, and what are the strategies that people can use to reuse things, and being able to identify, or at least say, here are some solid examples of content that's duplicated across different source files that I have. Then it's helpful to look at questions such as whether your content could be structured as topics. This is going to be very helpful to you if you can break your content into topics. By topic, what we mean is something that's usually a page to a page and a half, half page to a page and a half long, that answers a complete question. So, and that stands alone in answering a complete question. Some documents can, quite easily be broken up into topics. Some cannot, and that's one of the more important questions to ask yourself early on. And also looking at what style guidelines you have. Often people have a big style manual saying what styles or what formats to apply at what phrases. And often they have rules saying, do this, don't do that, use this word, don't use that word. It's helpful to know what your style guidelines are, just to collect them together. And it's also helpful to try to think about, what could possibly a computer automate for me. So with XML systems, you can have things like, giving you a warning if you've got too many warnings, if you have or if you're using a particular word that you shouldn't be using. So your next step after analyzing your content, and really the purpose of analyzing your content, is to help you select what's called an XML DTD or XML schema. So a lot's been written about this. I'm not going to go through everything, but just to quickly cut through to a shortcut in terms of selecting a DTD or schema. One thing that we really recommend to people these days is to use DTD called DITA, Document Information Typing Architecture, if at all possible. And DITA wasn't around 5 years ago, but now that it is, it's really growing, and this is a trend that we think will continue for a while. So because data is growing in popularity, and because it's a fairly well-designed, or it's a very well-designed CTD, I would say, it has an excellent feature set in a variety of tools, supports reuse well, and that's important because that's why people are usually moving to XML in the first place. Fairly wide adoption, very strong, vigorous community support, and it's also extensible. So it doesn't work for you out of the box. There's a very good chance that you can make data work for you with some supported customization to it. So let's look into tool selection and what goes into tool selection. So what tools are, and in particular what authoring tools are, is that tools give you a user interface for your XML. So on the left here we have what people often think of when they think of XML, and this is what XML looks like under the covers, but you wouldn't be writing normally, or basically ever, looking at something like this. Okay? What an XML authoring tool's job is to give you something more like what's on the screenshot on the right. What we're looking at here is the same document, just different renderings of that document. So on the right you see the same document open in XMetal, where it's giving you, icons and indents and styling and buttons that you can use to manipulate your content and make it easier to work with. Okay, so this is a pretty kind of stark illustration of how working with XML can be a totally different user experience depending on what kind of tool that you select. So because our expertise is in authoring tools, we're going to elaborate a little bit more on what it means to evaluate authoring tools. We've been asked in the past for checklists on what should be in an XML authoring tool, and you could make, a 100-point checklist on different features to look at. I think it's often just as helpful or more helpful to look at things kind of more holistically. And these are questions that you could evaluate for yourself. And a lot of these things are, pretty subjective. But when if you're evaluating it with the people who are going to be using the tool, that's probably more important than, it's more important to get good subjective information than it is to get, good subjective information that's meaningful to you than to get an objective usability. So here are some things to look for. The documents display in a way that people can read. If I make changes, is the system going to respond in a way that's meaningful? So is it going to save my changes? Is it going to store my changes as meaningful XML? And can I write using the application? Is it going to do what I need to do, or is it going to cite the me? So I'm going to switch over to XMetal now and do a very short demo in order just to illustrate a few of these points. So here's the document open in XMetal, and first thing that you would notice is probably that it doesn't look like an XML document, it just looks like a document. Okay? So first thing is that documents should look pretty much the way that they look to the reader. Not necessarily exactly the same, but something that you can use to kind of at a glance figure out what's going on in the document. We want to be able to see the document as it would in its natural state. We also want to be able to have control of the structure and to see what's going on structurally at the same time. You notice I can switch to tabs on view to do that. And I just want to show you what we mean by being able to write easily and being able to apply formatting easily. So say I want to make these 5 paragraphs here into a bulleted list, and so I want to put bullets on these things. I can select them and go to this bulleted list toolbar button just like that as I would in a word processor. And you'll see here that XMetal has put in the XML markup for me. Okay, so notice that I didn't have to think about, what is the tag name for a list item, what's the tag name for a bulleted list item, which tags are put in which order, if I close the tag off. I can expect the system to do all of that for me. And that's basically what an authoring tool's job is to do that thinking about the tag name for you. So let's look a little bit deeper into what an XML authoring tool should do. Getting unstructured content into the tool is something that almost everybody needs to do on a day-to-day basis. And this is also something that people are really concerned about that's going to be tedious for them. So XMetal does have a really cool feature here for being able to bring in unstructured content. So if I copy something out of a Word document and paste it into XMetal, you'll see that XMetal is going to go through, look at what's on the clipboard, run a script to it, and it's actually going to convert that into valid XML. I switch the tags on for you. You can see there's valid XML that's being created here. Okay, so that's something you might want to do a quick check for if you're buying an XML authoring tool, is getting some unstructured content into the tool. And making it easy for writers to reuse content. That's probably one of the ways I would say to round out your check of how to evaluate an XML authoring tool. An XML authoring tool is never, generally with XML, you're wanting to write a document that's composed of many small documents, because that's what will help you reuse things, and often you're working with content that's conditional. In other words, it applies to one audience but not another. So we'll give a quick demonstration of that. So here we've got, everything with a gray background here is content that actually is in a different document. And I'm going to choose to open this reference file and make a change to the content that was referenced from another document. And if I save it here, come over here and refresh references, or if I were to publish this document, you can see that I've made a change once and it's appearing everywhere, even though the change that I made was in a different document. So that's something that you should make sure that your XML authoring tool can do. Another thing that's also quite important is being able to work with conditional text. So for example, being able to say which audience or platform or product a piece of content applies to. And you can see here that XMetal has also has automatically styled the content, automatically put a color code on it, and that's just to help the writer keep track of what content is for what audience. Okay, so those are just some things that we encourage people to take a look at when they're evaluating an XML authoring tool. So let's talk a bit about creativity. Creativity is a word that's often thrown about when people are thinking of moving to structured authoring or thinking of moving to XML. And I really like this quote from Anne Rockley, and I encourage people to think about, what exactly they mean by creativity. So sometimes people are talking about creativity in terms of content, which is good, in terms of being able to concentrate on what they write. Sometimes people are talking about creativity when what they mean is talking about, tweaking how things look. Generally when organizations start to look into structured authoring, they're already at or beyond the stage where they want their documents to all look the same. So it's not productive or helpful or desirable for writers to be, tweaking how things look a lot. So you want to, find some diplomatic way to ignore the objections that people have about not being able to tweak the layout. But what you do want to address is the creativity that goes into content. Okay, and what's important here is writers needing to get their thoughts down without fighting with the computer. So again, tools can help with this. Your tools can present a document without a lot of on-screen clutter, without extra panes, without too many toolbars, without seeing tags and colors and everything all across the screen. Your tool can also help you by, letting you work with other tools and letting you interchange content between tools. Not everybody wants to write everything in XML right from day one. And another thing that we briefly looked at is being able to work with the structure without having to think in terms of what the underlying XML is. So when we looked at the example of selecting some paragraphs and applying a bulleted list toolbar button, that's the kind of thing that helps you, say what you want in your document, but without having to think about, and remember what the different tag names are. And that's something that people consider really helpful. Another thing that, another aspect of tool usability that also really important in terms of adoption is interoperability. So with XML, just kind of by the nature of where the technologies are at, is that you're very often trying to get multiple technologies to work together. Typically, you're working with an XML authoring tool along with a component content management system of some kind, and it's really important that those two can work together. And there's also other products and other features that you can integrate with the system for things like controlled language or math that also may need to fit into your system somehow. Let's look at CMS integration first, because that's the big one for most people. So having your authoring tool and your content management system work together means that you can, for example, check in and check out content directly from your authoring tool. You don't have to go to different places just to check out a document and then find it again. Being able to browse for images to insert, so if you have images in your content management system, you can get those into your document easily, and any kind of reference or link between documents. So XML documents are usually composed of multiple fragments of content. If your authoring tool and your CMS are well integrated, then you're going to be able to create those links between pieces of content easily. And you're also going to be able to view what those documents are, even when you bring in content from different files. Another thing that people are also very often interested in is having some kind of tool for controlled language in their writing. So there's a variety of tools that are out there. These are a few of the tools that XMetal has a strong integration with. In terms of the process for choosing an XML authoring tool, we would encourage you to try a trial version of the software because it's so holistic and really subjective. It's helpful. It's just really helpful to have your team members kick the tires a bit and try it with their own documents. With XMetal, there is a 30-day fully functional trial available and some exercises as well that you can go through. Now, in terms of the how this relates to the you don't hear so much from, that I haven't seen so much in other presentations, but I think this is useful, is using the vendor's time and energy. The software vendors, we've got agendas, that's true, but we also have a lot of experience in knowing how to overcome objections to adopting XML and being able to point out to people what they'll get positively if they do move to XML. And the good thing about vendors is that they're willing to share this for free. So I would really encourage you to milk that and to pull together samples of your own content for the vendor, get together questions for the vendor, and get as much free consulting as you can out of the vendor in that sales process. A vendor should be able to work with the sample content that you have. Vendor should be able to answer specific questions that you have about whether XML would work for your own organization. And if a vendor is going to give you one demo, they're often willing to give you more than one demo if you have different audiences as well that need to consider this business case for moving to XML. Another thing that we encourage people to do is to configure and optimize XMetal. So a lot of software, if you make a change to it, it will void your warranty. XMetal is generally not like that. There's a lot of changes that you can make to XMetal or ways to optimize and configure XMetal that are fully supported. So you can, for example, change quite significantly how documents will appear to writers, in terms of how they are styled on the screen. Integrating spreadsheets and databases is something that's a very common requirement that can be done. And just changing the interface to add keyboard shortcuts, add toolbar buttons. Another thing that you can do is actually remove menu items and remove toolbar buttons that people don't need to use. That's one way of shortening the learning curve a little bit. And more optimizing the spell checker as well, and creating a custom metadata form. Metadata is different in every organization, so it's really helpful to be able to create a custom dialog box, with the keywords or the particular fields that are meaningful to your organization. So that's it for technology. Reading whether technology should work. So one way that we think is useful in terms of going about training is to train a few people early on instead of training your entire team at once. So if you train a few people early on, they can, in the training process, start to think about things like, what is my reuse strategy really going to be? What are my writing and markup guidelines? Often, that's a big part of implementing XML is deciding on some, standard ways of doing things. And it's helpful to have a small team do that. Training a few people, you can also get a team together to do XML configuration, and that team can also be your trainers for the rest of the team. With training, you should remember to train on your authoring tool, your CMS, and if you're using one, a reviewing tool. Usually out of those three things, your authoring tool and your CMS can both take a fairly significant amount of time, and so could your training for your DTD or Schema. So to give you a sense of how this works is with training on XMetal and data, usually we would do that normally in 3 days of training. Some trainers do it in 2, and I figure that we're usually spending about 2/3 of that time just training people on the DTD itself. Training people on the tool is actually takes less time than training people on the DTD. And we would recommend not trying to learn all tools at once. Learn one tool at a time, let it sink in, let yourself absorb it a little bit, and then go on to another one. So specifically for data and XMetal, we're looking at 3 days. Just Systems offers training, and Just Systems Partners offer training. And we would really encourage people to consider customized on-site training. The reason for that is that you can ask questions without worrying about who else is listening to your questions, and also because it's so much more useful when the training is addressing your own examples and using your own sample documents. In 3 days, by the way, we can generally get people who know absolutely nothing about XML up and running and competent in writing topics in XML within 3 days. So people can get very good at writing in XML in 3 days. Sometimes 2 days. Finally, this is something that we encourage people to, strongly encourage people to consider, is do some kind of a proof of concept project, kind of pilot project. And what this means is that you get a small team and a small documentation set, train them on how to use the tools, take that small documentation set, convert it to XML, so you're testing your conversion process, and testing out your tools. You know, do all the features that I need work? If they don't work exactly the way that I expected, am I able to get support on them? Am I able to get my support, the support that I need? And see if you can create outputs and see if it really works in all the formats that you need and all of the languages that you need. So a proof of concept project can really flesh out a lot of issues. It can really make your team more confident in your implementation later on. And sometimes it will teach you big lessons, you know, and you may need to bring in a new one. And finally, just a few words about support. So support is a really important part of the implementation. So the XMetal comes with a very experienced support team with a product that's been around for a long time, and an active user support community as well. So, what does XMetal have to offer for the change management process? Being easy to use, being evaluation friendly. You know, everybody can download a copy of XMetal, try it out a bit. Good integration. Integration is something that's one of the big challenges of many implementations. So with XMetal, we really make a point of working well with other third-party tools and working with their vendors to troubleshoot those issues. Thank you. And being adaptable, finally, to the preferences of the team. So finally, we can suggest some readings on overcoming barriers to XML adoption. There's a few good ones that have been written here. Bring this up. So we just put a short list here. If you look at forums.xmetal.com, you'll see this reading list, short reading list that we've compiled on how to overcome barriers to XML adoption. And we'll talk in a little bit more detail about things like training and about things like requirements gathering that can help with your team. So thanks everyone for coming today, and our next 37-minute webinar is going to be in about a month. It's July 15th, and we're going to be making an announcement on our support website, forums.xmetal.com. Thank you, everybody.